Io registro allora in
This meeting is
italiano.
being recorded. In the cloud. Ok. Allora, thanks Monia and Nicola for helping with the... Grazie per iniziare a accogliere le persone. Piccolo messaggio in italiano di servizio. L'assemblea è in italiano e in inglese e c'è la funzione interpreti grazie alle nostre interpreti Amalia e Valentina e agli Eumans che finanziano le interpreti per le assemblee. Quindi si può seguire nella lingua che si preferisce e poi potete intervenire in italiano. Io parlo in inglese come da tradizione Eumans. Ok, welcome to the Eumans Assembly. Open for everyone, but where only the Eumans members have the voting rights. Before starting the political discussion, let's have the practicalities discussed, the order of the works and the rules of engagement of the Assembly, and the platform that we will use for the voting phase and for discussing the documents. I'm gonna I share the link in the chat and I ask maybe Lorenzo Mineo to help me to reshare the link as we go through the assembly so that everyone has access to that. I'm gonna share my screen for now so that we can start with the first phase of the assembly, which is the proposed order of the works and the rules of engagement for the assembly. On the platform house space that you can log from the link that we shared, we have already implemented the list of the Eumans members. So basically when it will be time for voting, only the members will have the right to vote. Let's go through the order of the works first. So now presentation of the order of the works and the rules of the assembly, eventual discussion and voting on the order of the on these two items. And then at 6:15 until 6:45, myself and Marco Cappato, we will do the introductory remarks. 6:45, we will open the general debate and we will have our guest speakers to open up the debate. There is time until 8:30 to present amendments to the final statement and eventual amendments to the statute. At 20 to 9, we will start the voting phase until 10 to 9, and then the conclusive remarks. So you can see it on the screen and eventually while you log into the platform. First of all, does anyone have any microphones, please? Microphones. Can you help me to not have the... Can someone silence the family? Thanks. Okay, so this is the suggested proposal for the order of the works. I now go through the rules of the engagement for the assembly. So only the Eumans members can propose amendment and vote on this item. On the closing statement that it's already published on the platform, only the Eumans members can propose amendments and vote, but the Eumans activists can suggest amendments, but cannot vote on the final statement. And then only the Eumans members can suggest statute amendments. In terms of speaking slots, the assembly is public, recorded, and will be published on YouTube. However, based on your Eumans situation, different time slots are guaranteed. So the Eumans members and activists can speak for 6 minutes, the invite guests 6 minutes, and the observers only 3 minutes. On this house space thing, you have all the functionalities. And on the draft final statement section, there is a chat box that can be used for proposing amendments. And then there will be a poll for the voting phase. You just need to go to the link that I shared, insert your email address, and based on the role that you have within Eumans, you see the different functionalities or not. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and ask if anyone has comments on either the rules of engagement or the order of the works. Otherwise, we start the normal assembly. So raise your hand if you want to comment on the proposed rules. Okay. It seems we all agree, which is a good starting point. Okay, so I will start with the introductory remarks myself and then Marco Cappato, and we kick off the assembly. Let me just take my notes. Okay, so let's kick this off. So welcome to the Eumans Members Assembly. As usual, everything is recorded and available for all the participants. We decided to call for this assembly with a specific focus on the need to protect democracy as a fundamental right above anything else. Because without a functioning democracy, rooted in the rule of law and the constitutional values and the international conventions, no other goals can be achieved. As mentioned in the convocation letter, there are three important political facts that needs to be on the table as we address what Eumans did in the past months, but most importantly, what Eumans should and can do in the next weeks and months. On one side, the Italian elections, not only the results, but most importantly, the impossibility or the difficulties and obstacles for citizens to really partake in the deliberative processes. The fact that almost 40% of Italians didn't go to vote, it's a political fact. The system that protects itself, basically creating impossible condition of participation for citizens who don't belong to forces that are represented in parliament. And the fact that the digital signature that was deemed valuable for the referendum, but didn't get the same recognition for the election. As a matter of fact, with Eumans over the summer, we did everything that was possible to offer the Draghi government the possibility to interrupt this illegality. Already on the 25th of July, we started to ask for the possibility to collect the signatures for the Italian elections through the digital enablement. We carried on a hunger strike of 10 days with 27 citizens to push and create a dialogue with the Italian government. And we were able to self-organize over 800 citizens that give their will to become candidate in the list Referendum and Democracy, which decided to collect the signatures for the elections only digitally to be able to activate the judiciary courts nationally and internationally to reduce the violation of political rights in Italy. This is the first political fact. The second one is that more and more, when it comes to electoral rights are becoming part of a broader discourse on the respect of the rule of law. We mentioned in the convocation letter the report that the European Parliament voted on the case of Hungary, that saw for the first time, in addition to all the rule of law issues that regard Hungary, also the functioning of electoral mechanism. And then a third point is the State of the Union speech of President Ursula von der Leyen back in September, that referred to the Conference on the Future of Europe as an institutional mechanism that involved citizens in new forms through sortition-based citizens panels and the use of a digital platform. And this Conference on the Future of Europe did a mandate for the reforms of the European Union, included the possibility of treaty changes. The Conference on the Future of Europe in itself wasn't a perfect mechanism of participation, but somehow it's a seed of new forms of democratic participation in the European Union. The same European Union that through the regulation on the European digital identity offers some backup to the initiatives that I was referring earlier with regards to the subscription of electoral list, referendum, and bill of popular initiative. In theory, for the follow-up of the Conference on the Future of Europe, there is space in the next European Council under the Czech presidency, but it's very important that the European civil society keeps pushing for what had been started with the Conference on the Future of Europe and needs to be strengthened and solidified. I think our mission as a movement of popular and non-violent initiative is now and more than ever to do our best to ensure that citizens have a real impact in decision-making processes, in proposing new laws and blocking those laws that go against fundamental rights and individual freedoms. And I believe that the Italian case and what we have done over the summer, it's an additional wake-up call for this mission that we have as a movement. In a few minutes, I will read the draft document that we offer for the discussion of this assembly, that somehow summarize what we have done and what needs to be done. But first of all, but before that, I want to mention some of the results achieved by Eumans since our last assembly in June. We have now 116 members for 2022, and we have over 3,000 donors that contributed to our initiative. Specifically, and mainly thanks to the initiative Referendum and Democrazia, we were able to fundraise 59,786 euros. It's a big sum. 40,000 of that had been expenses related to the launch of the digital platform for the collection of signatures for the electoral list. We had to do that because the Italian government didn't launch the public platform that was actually supposed to be launched, but also we used that funding for the judiciary appeals that relate this initiative. We will see in the document how this seed of action can be brought to the European and pan-European level. And also, we are being officially informed that we will be partners with European alternatives of the Transnational European Assemblies project, which gives us the budget to organize 2 sample citizen assemblies, one in Brussels and one in Italy. Brussels in December 2022 and in Italy in October 2023. I think this is an important responsibility, being partner of a EU-funded project, but it will allow us to give direct application to the deliberative methodologies developed both within the Politici per Caso coalition and the Citizens Takeover Europe coalition. At the same time, the possibility to start and self-organize citizen assembly, it's an additional pressure tool on one side for our initiative for the institutionalization of assemblies drawn by lot at all levels, but also as an additional form of political pressure at the local, national, and transnational level to show the power of what self-organized group of politically engaged citizens can do. I'm convinced that this economical resources and the Eumans enthusiasm that are around democracy and the advancement of democracy are an indicator of hope for our movement, but also for the goals that we have as a movement. If I look at the Italian case, I think the abstention rate is not an indicator of a lack of interest, but an indicator of a lack of proper political choices in the spectrum of representative democracy and in the spectrum of the impact of participatory democracy instruments. But I also think that these initiatives are the proof that each single person can contribute to make change happen, exactly as we did over the summer. I am convinced that as a movement, we should aim to be one of the driving forces to reconnect the people of Europe to the will of being part of decision-making processes. In the next Eumans Assembly in December, we will have the mandate to define the location of the Eumans Congress for 2023. And I think this assembly should start to think about that and how we want to prepare the Congress. Our proposal is to hold the Congress again in Warsaw, as we did last year, exactly for the same reasons that brought us to choose Warsaw for our first Congress. It is the heart of the crossroads between civil rights and political rights. I invite everyone during tonight's assembly to listen carefully to our guest speakers, Tony Venables, Kalypso Nicholaidis in particular, because their intervention will offer us a strong framework for going from the Italian actions that was so relevant over the summer to the pan-European action. I'm now gonna read the proposal for the final statement, which helps me to conclude my introduction. And it's also a reference for the debate of tonight. So I'm gonna read the document, which is also on House Space. The Assembly of Eumans, Pan-European Movement of Popular and Nonviolent Initiative on 27 September identifies the affirmation of citizens' civil and political rights through the defense and strengthening of the instruments of democratic participation as a priority for action and precondition for obtaining substantial reforms that improve the quality of life and the environment. It recognizes in the Referendum and Democracy Initiative the attempt to present a list in the Italian election with 30,000 signatures that were digitally signed but not recognized as valid by the Italian state, a popular action capable of revealing the constitutional illegalities of the electoral system and at the same time the urgency of ensuring maximum investments in strengthening the instruments of democratic participation, starting with the full implementation of the European digital identity and its use and adequate information of instruments of participation at all levels, participatory budgets, popular initiatives, referendums, and presentation of electoral lists. The need to establish citizen assemblies drawn by lot at local, national, and transnational level. The Assembly of Eumans consider as a determining factor for the effectiveness and recognizability of the movement's methodology the self-organization of the instruments of participation and the activation of national and soon international jurisdiction to broaden and develop inclusive forms of participation. Therefore, the Assembly mandates the executive bodies to, 1, identify opportunities to experiment with deliberative processes using the method of civic assemblies drawn by lot, starting with the objectives of fundamental rights, health, and freedom. Continue at the European level the initiative to strengthen the tools of digital electoral and participatory democracy, starting with European digital citizenship, in particular concentrating its direct actions towards the event, a rule of law-based digital democracy organized by Science for Democracy in Brussels in December 2022. Continue work to create the conditions for possible European and transnational civic initiatives on the objectives defined by the Warsaw Congress, including a global carbon pricing, a European living will, and the legalization of controlled substances such as cannabis. And start immediately the search for the human and economic resources to guarantee the sustainability of the next Eumans Congress, to be held in the first half of 2023, again in Warsaw, in particular through the activation of the statutory instruments of the Eumans groups, the Eumans registering for assembly, and the necessary investment for the organization of the movement, especially in the digital sphere. This is the document that we suggest as discussion. I will now give the floor for the co-president Marco Cappato for his introductory remarks, and we can use the chat if anyone has trouble accessing the platform, and after Marco's speech we will open the list of interventions for the assembly itself. Marco Cappato.
Thank you very much, Virginia. I will go on in Italian, and I thanks a lot the interpreters for their precious work. Quindi grazie Virginia per la tua relazione. Il mio intervento in realtà è semplicemente complementare, perché hai toccato tutti i punti importanti, e con il documento al quale hai lavorato e abbiamo lavorato riassume la sintesi degli impegni politici per i prossimi mesi. Parto da due appuntamenti, perché poi la difficoltà nella costruzione di un movimento paneuropeo è proprio quella della organizzazione anche delle sedi, degli appuntamenti, delle risorse per fare camminare le battaglie e gli obiettivi che abbiamo individuato. Quindi a dicembre saremo a Bruxelles di persona a parlare di democrazia, di attivazione degli strumenti della democrazia, e nella prima parte dell'anno l'obiettivo è di tornare a Varsavia per il congresso di Eumans. Naturalmente in una assemblea come questa, quello che è accaduto e accade in Italia è interessante soprattutto in una prospettiva europea, come Virginia ha già sottolineato. Credo che l'esistenza stessa di un movimento di iniziativa popolare paneuropeo serva a uscire da una contrapposizione che non ci porta molto lontano, tra un generico europeismo dei partiti, diciamo così, classici, difensori più o meno conservatori dei modelli istituzionali attuali, e dall'altra parte i rischi di un populismo nazionalista. Ecco, penso che sicuramente il nazionalismo e il populismo siano avversari sempre più così forti ed insidiosi in Europa, ma non si possono affrontare guardando indietro, vanno affrontati innovando, modernizzando la democrazia e le forme di partecipazione. Ecco perché quello che può sembrare un dettaglio, e lo è effettivamente, tecnicamente, cioè la possibilità di presentare delle liste con delle sottoscrizioni raccolte con firma digitale, e ovviamente non è una cosa della quale le persone parlano a cena, a casa, la sera, in famiglia, no? La firma digitale è una questione molto circoscritta, molto limitata, però ci dà proprio un esempio eclatante di quanto nemmeno una piccolissima cosa, piccolissima innovazione, facilissima da realizzare, sia stata fatta. Quando la rivoluzione tecnologica è sempre più pervasiva nelle nostre vite e è nelle mani di poteri sempre più forti, che sono quelli statali, del controllo statale, e anche delle cosiddette big tech, delle grandissime corporazioni delle tecnologie. Io sono proprio assolutamente convinto che fino a quando le cosiddette democrazie liberali non si renderanno conto della necessità di investire enormi risorse per modernizzare la democrazia, la tecnologia democratica e la tecnica democratica, la democrazia diventerà sempre meno importante e sempre meno credibile. Ovviamente le innovazioni non sono solo tecnologiche, sono anche di riforma degli strumenti di partecipazione. Ecco perché è così importante dire: vogliamo una cittadinanza digitale europea. Ne parleremo a dicembre a Bruxelles. Non significa solo digitalizzare i diritti che già ci sono, significa anche crearne di nuovi e riuscire ad attivarli dall'Europa alla più piccola municipalità locale. Questo è già un programma che si mette a disposizione di tutti coloro che devono andare, diciamo, che vogliono portare avanti delle cause, degli obiettivi, magari anche diversi da quelli che noi abbiamo individuato in partenza, no? Klaus ci parla costantemente del tema del unconditional basic income. Allora c'è stato il tentativo di attivazione di un'iniziativa dei cittadini europei. Quali altri strumenti si possono attivare? Questioni delle quali noi non abbiamo mai direttamente discusso, o meglio, non abbiamo mai messo in campo delle iniziative di Eumans. Penso ai diritti delle persone migranti o alle condizioni di estrema povertà che ci sono nelle nostre società. Ecco, noi vorremmo poter affrontare, aiutare ad affrontare queste ed altre questioni attraverso gli strumenti della partecipazione democratica. Ecco perché è necessario un enorme investimento da questo punto di vista. Termino col dire che a Varsavia dobbiamo iniziare ad affrontare, e forse possiamo farlo anche questa sera, il tema delle elezioni europee, perché una delle cose importanti che è venuta fuori dal tentativo di quest'estate della lista referendum e democrazia in Italia e delle firme digitali raccolte è stata proprio quella di considerare le elezioni come una delle forme della partecipazione democratica e quindi una delle forme che può essere utile provare a hackerare, provare a smontare dall'interno, provare a fare funzionare in un modo diverso. Allora non ho una proposta definita, ma è chiaro che è importante capire come i grandi temi dei quali abbiamo discusso e sui quali abbiamo anche attivato, penso, l'iniziativa dei cittadini europei sul cambiamento climatico, il carbon pricing, il lavoro di esplorazione sul tema della cannabis, sul tema del testamento biologico europeo. Ecco, dovremmo cercare di rilanciare l'iniziativa a livello paneuropeo su questi ed altri temi per capire anche se i progetti politici elettorali che esistono in giro per l'Europa possono farli propri e se possiamo noi stessi avanzare delle iniziative e delle proposte. Quindi è un lavoro anche molto diciamo difficile, che ha bisogno di creatività sul piano istituzionale e di studio di ciò che si può fare oggi in giro per l'Europa, anche con gli strumenti, con la tecnologia digitale per rafforzare la partecipazione democratica. Dal metodo si passa poi al merito, agli obiettivi, cioè riuscire a rafforzare il metodo democratico consente di mettere sul tavolo della politica delle urgenze sociali che i partiti tradizionali non si stanno dimostrando, con eccezioni naturalmente, non si stanno dimostrando in grado di affrontare con efficacia. E di tutto questo dobbiamo iniziare a parlare con l'appuntamento di Bruxelles e anche con la convocazione del congresso di Eumans per la seconda volta. Quello che noi vi proponiamo di fare è di tornare a Varsavia, che significa anche tornare alle basi, ai fondamentali della costruzione europea, dell'Unione Europea stessa, dei valori fondamentali della democrazia e dello Stato di diritto che, come sappiamo, sono sotto attacco, ma non solo in Polonia o in Ungheria o no, il pericolo italiano di Giorgia Meloni in realtà sono già erosi, i valori di democrazia e di Stato di diritto sono già erosi e minacciati da tempo in tutta Europa, anche sotto governi, diciamo così, di colore progressista o di orientamento europeista, e quindi c'è veramente bisogno di un grande sforzo che ritorni alle radici e agli obiettivi fondanti della stessa Unione Europea. Grazie.
Thank you, Marco Cappato. Thank you very much. So before opening from now on, you can write if you want to speak in the assembly. Before starting the general debate, I want to make sure that everyone has tried to access the link to the house space, which is an experiment that we are doing to manage the interaction and the voting phase that is usually a bit difficult at the end of the assembly. So please try and log and you will find the draft statement that I read earlier, and also it's from there that at the end of the assembly the members will be able to vote. So whilst people can register for their speech, I'm really happy to have with us Tony Venables from ECIT Foundation, and he was the promoter of the European Citizen Initiative Voters Without Borders, that every good European citizen initiative doesn't finish with the deadline for the collection of the signatures. Tony is one of the key advocates here in Brussels for the European citizenship and also for the participation rights within the European Union. And I thought his speech, and also a partner of Eumans in a few initiatives starting from our EU Sign Day 2 years ago. I really wanted to have Tony to help us to open this debate, because he's a careful observer of also the Italian elections, and it could help us to draw this line from Italy to Europe with the political rights at the center and the European citizenship as well. So Tony, the floor is yours to help us kick off the debate.
Thank you very much, Virginia, and it's really a great pleasure to be here. I think that the most important statement made so far was what you said right at the beginning, which was that if democracy is not working, nothing else is. And I really take that to heart, because having spent my life campaigning, setting up NGOs, going to the European court or running European boycotts in a different life, I've done all these things. And in all this time, I've never given enough attention to the actual functioning of democracy. Of course, that doesn't mean that I haven't engaged with politicians. I think as civil society representatives do that all the time. But when you look at democracy, how many NGOs are really engaged with the functioning of democracy as such. And yet, if more of them were, far more of their proposals would get through, because they would have a much better system and representatives who are closer to their concerns in the system. So the fact that Eumans is seeing itself as an organization for democracy is actually possibly even more important than you yourselves realize. It is a real step forward, because the engagement of civil society in democracy as such is in reality very weak. It's almost a kind of blind spot. Maybe when an election comes up, people get very active. They send questionnaires to candidates. They get some funds to help encourage first-time voters to vote. But then it's very difficult to sustain those efforts after the election is finished. Maybe there's a case for more European work in this area, simply because in any month there's always an election somewhere. So I see this as a very promising development, that an organization which is one of the most creative and radical on the European scene is looking at the instruments of democracy as such. I think when you do this,
Tony, sorry for interrupting you on the compliments, but the interpreters are having some troubles hearing you for the quality of the audio.
Okay.
Do you either have a microphone or there is a bit of an echo? So I don't know if you can.
I don't know what I can do, because I'm really, I'm not in Marco's digital age yet.
Okay, so I guess we need to ask the interpreters to do their best. And
I will try to slow a little bit. I think the one point I would like to make is that from the experience of Voters Without Borders, there should be a distinction between hard and soft issues to do with democracy. And I think one of the concerns I have is that the soft issues are tending to progress rather better than the hard issues. So citizens' assemblies are very fashionable. They could become a permanent feature of EU decision-making. There could be a kind of permanent digital platform. I think that Eumans has a great opportunity with its demand for making online voting and digital measures, digital instruments, much more widely accepted. And there's a lot of support, of course, within the European institutions for that type of approach to modernizing democracy. But there is a bit of a tendency, I think, to go for the latest fashionable participatory democracy gadget, which doesn't really cost too much, and which doesn't have any power behind it. It doesn't really change systemics and things which are fundamentally wrong in the system. I mean, we all are supposed to recognize that democracy is always imperfect, but better than its alternative. But we very rarely draw the conclusion that we really do need to look at the basic instruments of democracy. And I think that brings me to the hard issues. I mean, of course, it's very frustrating to campaign for voting rights because there are constitutional barriers, especially the barrier that voting should be reserved for citizens. It used to be reserved for some men before women got the vote, and now our third historical challenge, I think, is to make voting for everyone resident in the country, or those who've left the country as well. And this is the main last hurdle to achieving universal suffrage. Our ECI was presented to the Petitions Committee, as I think a former ECI of Eumans was presented to the Petitions Committee. And the Petitions Committee have sent our ECI onto AFCO. So we're going down to Strasbourg in a week's time to discuss with MEPs how they could take up the issue of voting rights. I mean, they've taken up the issue of transnational lists and successfully proposed that. So transnational lists of candidates for a European constituency. So I think we have a good demand to say, okay, we want to put to them, why not give more attention to the transnational citizens, those who vote, but don't vote enough across borders, and those who don't have the right to vote. So I think we would like somehow for the AFCO committee to open up more of a discussion about how we could imagine a roadmap towards universal suffrage in Europe. I mean, that should start with strengthening the existing rights of EU citizens so that they work properly. They work least well of any of the European rights, the political rights, although they're the gateway to all the other rights. In only 14 of EU 27 do third country nationals have the right to vote in municipal elections. They should get that right in all the EU countries and beyond, of course. I mean, that's a basic tenet, that you should be able to vote where you live, where your community is, you pay your local taxes. Of course, third country nationals should be able to vote in the European elections, as they should be able to do other things like sign ECIs. I mean, they are in the same situation as EU citizens. A big demand that we have is to work with cities, because cities are much more progressive on the political spectrum than national governments and many local governments. Cities do want to integrate migrant communities, and a lot of them support the idea that migrant communities should get the vote. So we need to expand the idea that it's normal to vote in your region, in your city, as it is normal to vote where you live in your municipality. And then we need a European debate on whether it is possible, whether it shouldn't be possible to vote in national elections where one lives. And that raises big constitutional issues about the relationship between the right to vote and the acquisition of citizenship, which is a difficult debate, but it is one which we really need to have. So I think that would be my my reaction, if you like. I think this is a great moment with an important movement saying it's going to become really committed to looking into the general functioning of democracy, the instruments of democracy as such. And I think my advice would be to try to hold in balance the hard and the soft issues. If you over-concentrate on the soft issues, you can easily become a kind of you can become recuperated, as the French would say, because a lot of regimes throughout the world are equally enthusiastic about some of the soft issues of democracy, but they're using that as a pretext in order not to give people the rights to vote, not to install universal suffrage in the first place. So I think part of our debate on democracy is reform, modernization, but part of it is actually still the traditional struggle for the basics. I mean, for example, the women in France organized a symbolic election in 1914 to get the vote. And I think we need to organize a European symbolic election for those 23.5 million people living in Europe who can't vote in the European elections in the run-up to 2024. I think that's the kind of project where probably we could join forces. So it's not for me to comment on your statement, but maybe the words universal suffrage could come in. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony Venables, for also challenging us on the different forms of participation, representative, not representative, and the layers of participation. And talking about challenges, I'm very happy to introduce the next guest, who is not a guest because he's also a Eumans member, but the speech that can help us to push a bit the boundaries of our debate tonight is Kalypso Nicholaidis. She is a Eumans member, but most importantly, chair in international affairs at the School of Transnational Governance at the European University Institute and member of the coalition Citizens Take Over Europe. I asked Kalypso to help us to draw the line from those seeds that I was mentioning at the beginning of the Conference on the Future of Europe that created some new possibilities for citizens, and the project for a permanent European Citizen Assembly, which is one of the goals that as Eumans we pursue with the coalition Citizens Take Over Europe, and then that we act on at a national level with Politici per Caso and the other initiatives that are related to this, what Tony defines a soft instrument, but maybe Kalypso can help us to create a bit of a dialectic in the assembly. So the floor to Kalypso Nicholaidis on this matter.
Thank you so much, Virginia. And you know, you've been such a courageous leader in this struggle, even going on hunger strike. And you're a believer, and we are all believers. But sometimes some of us, some of you, you know, will put their own health and body on the line to defend democracy. And this is a very old story. And I think the first point I want to make is that, you know, what is democracy if it's not the accumulated force of struggles throughout the ages that come on top of each other, and the memory of this struggle, and us being faithful to these struggles and yet adding our own democratic imagination to how you struggle. So democracy is not some sort of abstract institutional thing with governments and parliaments. It's first of all very much in the spirit of what Tony just said, struggles after struggles to, I would say, universal suffrage. Yes, Tony, that's the horizon, but to expand the franchise. Basically, that was being the biggest core struggle. And what is your campaign, if not another layer, another moment in Italy, but in Europe and in the world, to expand the franchise, to say that people it should be easier to vote. It should be easier to, you know, in the digital age, especially for your generation, Virginia, and all the others on this call who are, you know, young and unlike some of us, expanding the franchise means digital. Expanding the franchise also means that some topics should be up for grabs for our votes. And that is what you're doing with asking for a vote on cannabis and euthanasia. And there was a wonderful Eumans conference, of course, a few months ago, where you really laid it out very, very clearly. And I think we all believe in that campaign. But again, it's a story about, we want more people to vote. The struggle is not finished. We want to also, in a way, give a voice to the next generation through us. We want to give a vote to those who are close to dying. So it's the two extremes. So it's a story about voting and the franchise. So that's one story, the struggle for expanding that you are faithful to and in the line of. And it's important to, in this age where social movements and what Eumans and others and ECA and all of our different organizations that somehow gather represent, it's no longer a political party and you're, I don't know, a social democrat in Europe and you remember Jaurès. But what you remember is not the story of your party, but it's the story of these struggles. So I would say that your petition, Virginia, is so crucial in that, in and of itself, but also if we give it that long view. And the second point I would like to put on the table now for us is that, let me be a bit cynical and strategic here, because when you're talking about this struggle and these struggles, and you're talking about how the Supreme Court says no, but you know, Supreme Courts very often, they advance with, it's politics with a veil. I mean, they take what the elites want. So let's not hide ourselves. We all know this on this call, that, you know, when we talk about democratic innovation, participatory expansion, we can either be rejected or co-opted. So of course there is a rejection. Representative democracy is not going to just simply say, oh, isn't that wonderful? You know, let's have more of these other things. No, we, since the 18th century, have developed this and perfected representative democracy. It so happens it's always the same who get elected, maybe not always, because we've seen what happens in Italy, as you were saying, Virginia, but nevertheless, representative democracy has become elitist, but therefore it will not, and has always been elitist, but it will not let go easily, because this is a matter of assignment of power. And we want more assignment of power to the people. We want participation without populism. And so there is, of course, resistance from the representative side, although most of the time not explicitly, because that's not politically correct. But the second thing is, of course, there is co-optation when we talk about participation short of referenda, because the biggest fear in Europe these days is referenda by the people, either national ones, as you're suggesting, or trans-European ones, or national ones on the same topic. And because they're hard to control. And so I think there's something to be said, indeed, for, so for me, referenda, if they're well held, is the key to democracy, to participatory and popular democracy. But we can give something to the skeptics, to those who want to resist, and co-opt other mechanisms. So we will check the list. We will have a few panels in the EU, and we check the list of participatory democracy. And I say, well, you know, deliberative democracy, citizens' assembly, democracy by lottery is a wonderful mechanism. I'm not going to expand on it because everybody in this call is very familiar with this story, and you've already talked about it. And it can tame direct democracy in promising that when we have referenda, they can be preceded by deliberative, sortition-based assemblies that themselves are surrounded by an ecosystem of debates around the country and around Europe. So it can make direct democracy better. And that is a very key promise that we can have. So I'm going to stop there, Virginia, because I'd rather hear, you know, what others have to say and have the conversation, because in this wonderful and important assembly on the activity of Eumans that is so important.
Thank you, Kalypso. Thank you very much. Maybe I have one question for you, though, which is on the your comment, even quickly, on the conference on the future of Europe, and somehow if it's something that needs to be built upon, like because a lot of people talk about it as a democratic exercise. And I think the word exercise is the most diminishing one that can be used for processes. So I think since one of our goals is to pursue this goal of the European Citizen Assembly and making permanent some of the mechanism of the Conference on the Future of Europe, maybe your comment on this can be precious for the debate if you want.
Virginia, of course, and this is something we all, again, as you say, all care about, and it's part of a campaign, and for CTOE, of which I'm part, is also, of course, and as part of this mouvance and connection between movements, we're all rooting for this. So I would say there is, good news and bad news, if I can shorten my response to you. The good news is that indeed, not only has it been an experiment that has delivered very interesting lessons, plus and minus, but it is an experiment and we're all reflecting on it. And it has at least demonstrated that it's possible to have transnational panels. Of course, they call them panels and not assemblies for very important reasons. Labels matter in this story. Assembly sounds a bit more like the people taking over. So that's the good news. And not only that, but of course, we know Ursula von der Leyen in her State of the Union speech said democracy 15 times. There's a whole package for democracy that is promoted by the Commission. A lot of initiatives, mostly on fear of interference from the outside, but with many actors trying to expand this agenda, and the promise of holding at least 3 panels, new panels, by the Commission in the next year. And then this will be reported in the next State of the Union a year from now. So that's all very good, and it tells us that something has happened. The bad news is that, well, these panels are pretty. They will not be applauded by all the peoples of Europe. They're pretty obscure. No, it's hard to know what will happen. It will be very hard to publicize. It's a very small step. Maybe small steps are important, but a very small step. One. Second, when we discuss at all, the Commission and the Parliament is pushing for a convention, they seem to have set aside the idea, constitutional convention, the idea that somehow there would be sortition-based participation in that convention. So somehow it has not been contagious. It's more like been there, done that for big issues. And thirdly, I think in a broader political theory kind of way, these kinds of citizen assembly, you can think of them as making the policymaker making better by giving the point of view of citizens who are not captured by special interests, who have collective intelligence, all the arguments that you use. But that's quite different from making them a new space for real bottom-up democracy, for citizens' initiatives that give them a sense that their voice is heard, that they're part of the process at the local level, city level. Tony was saying city is so important, regions, etc., and that they can speak Europe at any level. And that's a democratic agenda rather than a policymaking agenda. The two are not incompatible, but they're different focus. And right now we see the focus on that one. So in that context, then third and last point, Virginia, from your question, all of us are indeed promoting the idea of a permanent system of a citizens' assembly, and then we go into the conversation of exactly how it would work, but institutionalizing this in the EU. And that raises huge resistance if it was really the way we want it, because in the EU, there's such a subtle, complex institutional balance that it's like throwing a rock in the and shaking things up in a way that member states especially, but also the European Parliament and probably the Commission, none of the institutions are ready for this. It will take a long time. And so I go back all the way to my initial word, struggle. This is going to be a struggle, and we're going to all be in it together.
Thank you very much, Kalypso. Thanks a lot. So, moment of practical things. So Lorenzo Mineo is the first person that subscribed as a speaker. I also invite everyone to check the House Space platform for comments on the final statement, integrations. Before Lorenzo, I want to give the floor to Roberto D'Andrea, a PhD student in penal law. I hope it's correct. He will correct me. And before giving him the floor, I want to remind us, Roberto is going to speak about the judiciary actions that we have done for the Lista Referendum and Democrazia, but also try to expand this. And I'm happy to say that when we launched Eumans, the idea of a movement of popular initiative and nonviolence action was the pillars. We started activating participatory democracy for the past 3 years, but this is the first time with this initiative that we activate judiciary courts on an initiative driven by humans, not only, but mainly by humans. So I'm really happy to give the floor to Roberto to try to expand our reasoning on all the instruments that constitute a struggle to quote Kalypso. Microphone.
Perfetto, grazie mille Virginia, grazie Lorenzo e buonasera a tutti. Dunque io voglio cominciare il mio intervento con una domanda. Che cosa succede quando la maggioranza sbaglia? Perché questa era una domanda che si poneva il grande filosofo, uno dei padri fondatori del pensiero liberale, John Locke, che certamente non disprezzava la democrazia, anzi la elogiava, però appunto da uomo acuto qual era, si poneva questo interrogativo. Noi nella nostra politica tradizionale svolgiamo la nostra politica tradizionale attraverso le elezioni, si forma una maggioranza in Parlamento, la maggioranza dà la fiducia, il Parlamento quindi dà la fiducia al governo e che la politica così si svolge. Però appunto la maggioranza può sbagliare. Diciamo subito cosa si intende per evitare eccessivi relativismi. Sbagliare si intende violare i diritti fondamentali, i diritti e le libertà fondamentali che non possono essere violate ad opera di nessuno dei cittadini, nemmeno ad opera della maggioranza e nemmeno ad opera dell'unanimità dei cittadini, meno il cittadino che viene invece oppresso, le cui libertà fondamentali vengono violate. Dunque, è da questo interrogativo che muove tutto il resto delle nostre argomentazioni, dei nostri argomenti e delle nostre iniziative politiche, perché l'unico modo per risolvere, per porre rimedio agli errori della maggioranza sicuramente non può essere maggioritario. È un metodo in questo senso contromaggioritario, ma non meno democratico, anzi in un certo senso più democratico. Si tratta quindi di diciamo così, fare politica attraverso, anche e soprattutto attraverso strumenti giudiziari. Prima si è parlato di referendum, di assemblee di cittadini estratti a sorte, ma un altro parallelo metodo di lotta politica e democratica è questo qui, quello quindi della politica mediante strumenti giudiziari. L'esempio emblematico è quello della lista Referendum e Democrazia, che si è attivata per far valere le sottoscrizioni digitali in vista delle consultazioni elettorali e per fare applicare, qui siamo in una sede appunto di carattere paneuropea, quindi per far valere il regolamento dell'Unione Europea EIDAS, che sancisce un principio importante, che è il principio dell'equiparazione della firma autografa a quella digitale. Devono essere trattate come uguali e tutti i cittadini europei devono ottenere e devono avere questo diritto a poter sottoscrivere liberamente, digitalmente, a potersi interfacciare con la pubblica amministrazione attraverso gli strumenti digitali. Questo diritto è stato negato perché questo regolamento non è stato applicato e appunto attuare politica mediante gli strumenti giudiziari significa ricorrere in via interna, in sede internazionale, per far valere questo diritto come tanti altri diritti e libertà fondamentali e indurre dunque i giudici, cercare ovviamente di persuaderli, ottenendo decisioni appunto favorevoli, nel senso anche di applicare regolamenti dell'Unione Europea o qualunque altra fonte del diritto idonea a far valere i diritti e le libertà fondamentali e non invece appunto, come spesso avviene nelle azioni istituzionali, a calpestarli. Io credo che la lotta politica mediante strumenti giudiziari si riconduca al più generale metodo, che è quello della disobbedienza civile. Questo è il metodo che si pone in contrasto con quanto diceva un grande filosofo greco, che era Socrate. Socrate diceva: si deve sempre e comunque obbedire alle leggi. Le leggi possono essere ingiuste, benissimo, si cercherà di convincere le autorità a cambiarle, si cercherà di diventare l'autorità e cambiare queste leggi, però una volta che si fallisca nell'obiettivo del convincimento, alla legge bisogna obbedire, senza se e senza ma. La disobbedienza civile si pone in contrasto con questa affermazione, perché nel frattempo che si convincono le autorità a cambiare autorità, nel nostro caso diciamo la maggioranza, il governo, il Parlamento, le istituzioni, a cambiare delle leggi ingiuste, quindi delle leggi lesive dei diritti umani, si sacrifica la carne viva dei cittadini, le cui libertà intanto continuano ad essere sacrificate. Quindi non è un metodo idoneo a tutelare in maniera adeguata quello di obbedire sempre alle leggi. Alle leggi ingiuste piuttosto si deve disobbedire attraverso appunto lo strumento della disobbedienza civile, che è uno strumento assolutamente indispensabile nelle nostre democrazie. Chiaramente si deve distinguere la disobbedienza civile da ogni altro tipo di disobbedienza alle leggi generica che non è invece conforme al metodo democratico, e deve avere in particolare due caratteri fondamentali che hanno tutte le disobbedienze civili, anche quelle ad opera appunto diciamo così, delle forze politiche a cui noi guardiamo. Il primo carattere è quello della non violenza, quindi perché la violenza non fa altro che aumentare i rischi per i diritti fondamentali e le lesioni dei diritti fondamentali, quindi sicuramente non si può adottare un metodo di carattere violento. E in secondo luogo deve essere pubblica, perché deve mirare a contrastare la clandestinità e a controllare in maniera invece adeguata, a regolamentare i fenomeni. Quindi non può essere certo un metodo furbesco, diciamo così, per sottrarsi alla sanzione della legge, ma invece al contrario deve essere un metodo per mettere in luce le contraddizioni del sistema e per cercare di generare un dibattito pubblico e ottenere decisioni favorevoli da parte dei giudici. Per questo appunto parlavo prima di strumento giudiziario di lotta politica. Quindi in ultima analisi anche la disobbedienza civile si identifica con uno strumento di questo tipo, o che può sfociare in questo tipo di decisioni favorevoli, e quindi è uno strumento essenziale per il progresso del nostro ordinamento in sede nazionale, in sede europea, paneuropea, ma poi in generale, lo auspichiamo tutti, spero, in sede globale. Quindi grazie mille, queste erano le considerazioni che brevemente ho cercato di svolgere e di condividere con voi.
Thank you very much, Roberto. You brought together non-violence and judiciary actions, so we have a full menu for the assembly. So the first person to speak as a member is Lorenzo Mineo, 6 minutes, and then Oleg Missikoff, 3 minutes, because you are not yet a Eumans member, but we hope to welcome you soon as such. And I remind everyone, raise your hand or write in the chat if you want to speak. Lorenzo.
Thank you, Virginia. Okay, I will put the interpretation of...
The recording has stopped.
Oh, sorry.
This meeting is being recorded.
Sorry, I will put the interpretation off during my intervention, otherwise I may get confused. Okay.
Maybe you can just abbassare il volume dello speaker, così tu parli e non senti.
Oh, okay, maybe just for my intervention, it's easier for me to stop the interpretation, and then I will put it again. Okay, the point is that in this, I would like to comment on the Italian result, the recent election in Italy, trying to consider some elements from this election from an international perspective, so elements that are not just relevant for Italy. And the most important of this one is probably the result of abstention. These are the election in Italy in which there is the major lack of participation since Italy is a republic. So I think this data is already very important in a way to underline some elements of the Eumans analysis on the reasons why we decided to launch this movement. So there are some this crisis of citizen participation emerging from the results of Italian election. I think is something that is enforcing, of course, our interpretation, our vision of the problems of democracy problems, current problems of democracy. So I think this is important because if on the one hand the result of Italian election is confirming that the electoral system, so the electoral way of building politics is somehow rewarding, of course, populism on the one hand and abstention on the other. I think that the way we are building politics by building initiatives could somehow mean to different results. What I'm trying to say is that we cannot be winners in electoral democracy by building initiatives in other field of democracy. We can reach more people and achieve our objectives. So what I was trying to say is that in particular regarding the initiative that Eumans is building on citizen assembly and for instance during Warsaw we were starting a reflection on how to relaunch a referendum also on a European scale. I think we should start from this proposal to build our agenda because the general trend of election is showing once again that this is not exactly the field in which we can move if we want to build proposals that are really improving the quality of life of people, of European people, as our goals that we also are considering in our statute. This is why I would like to also propose, it's not something that we have to decide here, since according to our statute, this is something that the presidents should decide. But I would like to start a Eumans group on democracy to focus on proposal to enforce democracy both at national, European and local level. So to study, of course, starting from studying, but also on proposing initiative to empower European, national and local democracy, not only through election, but through other channels. Because as I was saying, the approach, the initiative-based approach to politics is, I think, once again, the good one, and results are proving that. So on the 13th of October, we will be in Modena for the presentation of Eumans in Italy. For the first time, we will present in presence in Italy Eumans as a movement. And I think this will be also the occasion just after a defeat, just after the result of election, to show that another model of doing politics is possible. And I think that this is exactly the good moment to convince people that are quite disappointed even about the result of election, to convince people that another way of doing of doing politics is possible, starting from initiatives. So this will be, of course, the occasion to talk about new initiatives that we are already preparing, such as the ECI on cannabis, such as a package of proposal to relaunch democracy in Italy. So this is my 2 cents, and you are all invited, of course, to come to Modena.
Thank you, Lorenzo Mineo, also for referring to the Eumans groups. It's one of the statute changes that we applied in Warsaw, and I think it's very important for the sustainability of the movement in itself that progressively the people that have a specific interest of an area of action start to organize in these groups, and for the community, or not community, but the groups of individuals that joined the Lista Referendum and Democrazia project over the summer. It's also a great opportunity to keep working on that goal without making Eumans the Lista Referendum and Democrazia, but to have a more strength there and to also broaden our actions. So now the floor to Oleg Missikoff for 3 minutes. I want to remind that you can raise your hand or write in the chat if you want to speak, and I encourage you to do so. And also I'm gonna share again the link to House Space, where it's possible until 8:30 to make suggestions for integration to the draft, the statement, and where we will have the voting phase for the members at the end. There was a question in the chat from Mariel if she can delegate her vote. No, vote is individual, so no delegates for the votes. Oleg Missikoff.
Okay, as Lorenzo has correctly pointed out, there is an evident, loss of faith and trust of the voters for the institutions. So my idea is that we need to work on 2 directions. We have to work upwards to put pressure on governments for doing the right things, but at the same time, and maybe provoke some changes in the laws. But at the same time, we have to work downwards to get the people to be more involved in the political life, because there's really a loss of interest, which is very dangerous for democracy. So for this reason, I like to use the definition of a middle out approach. So somehow we have to be in the middle and be able to connect the top with the bottom in some ways. This is one thing. Second thing, so integrating in a way the effort, the struggle to change the functioning of democracy with the engagement of citizen communities. This is one thing. The second thing is that there's a lot of valuable initiatives taking place across the union, and but the scenario is very fragmented. So how to get all these different experiences and initiatives to converge on a shared program. Then one last thing about immigration, because this is really my thing, and I truly believe that we have to work again on 2 sides. Of course, on hospitality and integration, this is forced, but at the same time, the right, I call it the right to stay at home. We have because these people are forced to leave their families, their friends. I know them. It's a suffering. I mean, they're not happy. Obviously, everybody would be more happy to stay at home with his family, his friends, and in his house than leaving to go somewhere else. So the pushing to strengthen the investments in development projects and empowerment of local population. Okay, 3 minutes. I stop.
Thank you, Oleg, for interrupting yourself, but since there is no one else who want to speak, if you want to conclude your reasoning, you can. So I can give you a couple of more minutes if you have something else to say.
Okay. Well, basically, just to just a few data about the growth. For example, the growth of the population, the overgrowth of population, that many studies have demonstrated that is tightly connected with the instruction of the girls. I mean, obviously, if girls can study and can go forward in their career, then they will not have so many children like the ones that are married at maybe 12 or 14, and they start having children at that age, and they don't do anything else. Okay.
Thank you, Oleg. Thank you very much. Now the floor to, I hope I'm not wrong, but Sibilla Barbieri, who is a Eumans member, Eumans board member, and among the first people who saw the beginning of Eumans. So 6 minutes for you, Sibilla.
Grazie Virginia, parlo in italiano. Allora, inizio con una citazione che dice così: molte persone provano a cambiare la natura degli umani, ma è davvero una perdita di tempo. Non puoi cambiare la natura degli umani. Quello che puoi fare è cambiare gli strumenti che usano, cambiare le tecniche, allora cambierai la civiltà. Questo l'ha scritto Stuart Brand e parlava del web. Recentemente sto studiando un libro che è The Game di Baricco e vi volevo citare qualcosa perché secondo me è molto importante riflettere su come gli strumenti, perché noi siamo partiti da uno strumento, potrebbero fare questa differenza. Nel web tu puoi entrare da qualsiasi punto, non c'è un sopra, un sotto, non ci sono dei sacerdoti, delle elite che ti dicono come fare, ognuno acquisisce informazioni, naviga, viaggia, scambia e partecipa alla creazione comune. La rivoluzione digitale ha portato una rivoluzione mentale. Questa rivoluzione mentale in realtà è quello a cui noi assistiamo, tra cui anche l'abbattimento delle elite. Secondo me, cambiare gli strumenti è veramente cambiare la mente delle persone. Dobbiamo considerare il fatto che esiste proprio un nuovo popolo democratico, sganciato dalle ideologie del Novecento, che gli cadevano dall'altro, che cerca dei rappresentanti. E voi mi direte che cosa ci fa allora con la Meloni, patria, famiglia e cristianesimo? In realtà, se non può andare avanti, va indietro. In questo caso è secondo me molto guidato dall'abbattimento dell'elite, dalla credenza che questa nuova leadership per quanto riguarda l'Italia possa essere una novità, e questo è quello a cui abbiamo assistito in Italia con il Movimento 5 Stelle e con altro. Gli strumenti che noi abbiamo attualmente, abbiamo detto che non ne abbiamo, come faceva riflettere Marco. Anche questo piccolissimo, che era quello di chiedere la firma digitale, c'è stata rifiutata. Quindi io penso che noi dobbiamo continuare a batterci su questi fronti, perché in realtà esiste proprio una nuova civiltà che si sta evolvendo. Non a caso noi siamo appunto molto in linea con le nuove generazioni. È molto facile per noi parlare, perché un'altra caratteristica di questa rivoluzione tecnica del web è quella di non avere per esempio uno spazio definito, no? Possiamo essere ovunque, e questa cosa qui per esempio noi la ritroviamo nel concetto di voler allargare, diventare paneuropei, di dare il voto alle persone lì dove sono, cioè è una nuova visione, però non ci sono persone che sono interessate a questo, ci sono molte persone interessate a questo. dobbiamo continuare a batterci per avere questi strumenti. Grazie.
Thank you, Sibilla Barbieri. I see Marco Cappato.
Yes, thank you, Virginia. I wanted to add something because somehow I forgot the fact of being more in a transnational situation, even if some of you are Italians, but maybe some of you don't know something that happened this summer, not only this digital signature campaign on the electoral list. So I wanted to inform everybody about the fact that beginning of August, I went to Switzerland to accompany a lady, a woman, to get medically assisted suicide over there. And in Italy, this action, I don't get into legal details, but can be punished from 5 to 12 years of prison, sentenced to prison. So I self-denounced, I denounced myself when I get back to Italy. When I got back to Italy, I went to the police and I told them what I did. So there is the possibility of a trial that could be opened again. It would be not the first time against me on this matter. I give this information also because this could be relevant in our move to push for a European living will and a kind of common guarantees for end of life decisions. The second thing that I wanted to say is that I will go to Malta, La Valletta, in the next days together with Andrea Salembeni on the issue of climate change and carbon pricing, because we are desperately looking for a government to propose at the next COP27 in El Cairo, our proposal of a global carbon pricing and shifting taxes and the fiscal burden from labor to pollution and CO2 emissions. I post in the chat the global appeal that we are still working on, and I wanted to mention this also because I think is very relevant also for the next European elections. In general, in order to try to have climate change as the priority or one of the main priorities for global and European politics in the coming years, because I think that global carbon pricing is at the same time a social and a liberal and a green solution. A social because of the idea of decreasing taxes on labor and lower incomes. Liberal because it's a market solution to cope with climate change, and green, of course, because it would disincentivize heavily CO2 emissions. So I think that even if after our European citizen initiatives was difficult to have energy and time and resources to keep on our campaign, I still think that this should be in our horizon for coming weeks and months for Eumans action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marco Cappato. Oreste Gallo, Eumans member, 6 minutes. But with the microphone, not 6 minutes of silence. Prova, Oreste. effectively the microphone seems correctly on, but we can't hear you, so check the preferences. While Oreste tries to fix the microphone, if anyone else wants to speak, please raise your hand or write in the chat. Every comment is helpful. Okay, as Oreste tries to fix the situation, Marco Toma, who, 1 second that I have to check the membership.
Mi sentite?
Yes, 1 second. Marco Toma, 3 minutes as an observer. Marco.
Pronto? Mi sentite?
Sì.
Allora, voglio solo specificare una cosa rispetto a quello che è accaduto in quest'estate col fatto dell'esclusione della lista di Marco Cappato in Italia. Dico soltanto che c'è un ritorno in Europa in questo periodo, a un ritorno all'indietro, nel senso di negazione di democrazia. In realtà abbiamo avuto, sappiamo bene, la cosiddetta democrazia controllata di Putin, che è una dittatura, anche lo stesso Zelensky, blocca le cose. L'abbiamo avuto una Merkel che per 20 anni non ha fatto fare le elezioni. Questo il nostro pericolo, che adesso ci blocchino proprio l'espressione democratica reale. Nel senso, cioè, che quello che è accaduto con Marco Cappato, con l'esclusione della lista, può provocare questo, un ritorno all'indietro, nel senso di democrazie controllate. Questo voglio dire, di questo non andrebbe battuta la cosa, diciamo, per quello che è accaduto. Fine.
Thank you, Marco. I hope that our statement suggested for assembly gives a direction to keep batting, to keep pushing. And Oreste Gallo, try again. Sì.
Mi sentite?
Sì.
Oh, excellent. I'm becoming better and better in managing technology. Necessity, out of necessity. So I would like to give some thoughts about the Italian elections, which I think are relevant from a European perspective. And I start with recognize that what the previous speaker, I think it was Kalypso Nicholaidis, was saying. I think is very true. Democracy is a struggle, and a struggle which has been going on for many centuries. Less than a mile from where I live, there is in London, there is a small church where the first public debate about democracy took place in 1647. It was a public debate because it was a debate among ordinary members of the public, like us, not philosophers, but people like us. And it was public because people took note of what was said. So we know exactly who said what in those days. For the Italians, I mean, very, very similar to what Radio Radicale had been doing for many decades. So public debate. And it is what is happening now. But we need to broaden this discussion because the Italian election has been the result of what I would characterize a political oligopoly with very, very high entry barriers to protect the political and the economic rents of the incumbents, of the existing political parties. And I think we cannot expect reforms happening from the inside the system. I think it's very unlikely, if not totally impossible. So it is very much needed, and Eumans is the platform, I think, to bring forth these discussions and these initiatives, is the request of an assembly of citizens, a panel of citizens, even better, is less controversial, to discuss and deliberate about the changes of the political system, the electoral laws, the financing of political parties and political movements, especially movements outside of the parliament. All these kind of rules which prevent a real competition from happening. And I think it is very much needed because based on my experience, I would not expect this initiative to start from the inside the political system, the existing political system. It will not be in Italy, speaking about Italy, the Democratic Party, which will lead this movement. It will not, of course, be the far right, because they are all benefiting from the political and economic rents existing, which have been created by them themselves. So either it starts from a movement like Eumans, or it will never happen. And that's my thought for discussion.
Thank you, Oreste Gallo. So I have two more people that want to speak. Please, since we are not a lot, but we are a good number, if you want to speak, try to raise your hand right now so we have a better idea of how many people are willing to do so, or otherwise we go toward the end. Paola Stringa, Eumans member, 6 minutes, and after her, Valentina Cosimati, also Eumans member, for 6 minutes.
Spero che me ne serviranno molti meno. Sempre per il discorso accesso alla democrazia, voto e l'esperienza di questo weekend, volevo raccontarvi quella che è stata la mia esperienza questo fine settimana, perché sono stata presidente di seggio in ospedale al Mauriziano a Torino, che è un ospedale grande, più di 200 posti letto. E io ho fatto una cosa unica come dire, in quello che è il servizio elettorale nazionale, che è quello di far votare delle persone fuori dal loro seggio. Quindi il discorso del voto fuori sede vale per gli scrutatori, per il presidente di seggio, il segretario, le forze dell'ordine e per i degenti. Quello che voglio dire è che è un'esperienza assolutamente positiva, un'iniziativa che ha preso il Comune di Torino è stata quella di digitalizzare il certificato elettorale, di modo che chi era degente o anche chi non riusciva ad andare in anagrafe a chiedere un duplicato, accedendo con lo SPID alla piattaforma istituzionale che si chiama Torino Facile, riusciva a scaricarsi il suo certificato. Quindi questo per dire che quando si vuole si riesce a digitalizzare qualche cosa di tutto questo, di tutte le elezioni, che sembra complicato e impossibile far venire meno la segretezza e tutto quello che ne consegue. Quello che voglio ancora dire è che tutti i documenti che a me sono stati presentati come presidente di seggio non avevano nessuna attestazione di conformità, diversamente a quello che c'era stato chiesto quando abbiamo depositato la lista e i certificati. C'erano state delle rimostranze dagli uffici perché no, però quello che mi hai prodotto no, io non posso certificare essere originale. A me invece hanno prodotto delle fotocopie e io mi sono fatta andare bene quello, ma non perché io sono permissiva, ma perché funziona in questa maniera. Quindi di nuovo l'attestazione di conformità, se devi presentare una lista, è necessaria. Se invece devi ammettere una persona al voto, no. Poi per dire la scheda di voto in ospedale, voti secondo la competenza di cosa ha in mano il presidente, quindi anche persone che erano residenti tipo a Catanzaro hanno votato gli uninominali e plurinominali di Torino. Una signora valdostana cercava i suoi simboli e io le ho dovuto dire: signora, io ho questa, le devo far votare questo. Sempre per tornare al discorso paradossi, una volta che ho finito tutto quanto il mio servizio elettorale, il pagamento del compenso, come l'ho chiesto, sempre su Torino Facile e sempre con lo SPID. Questo per dire che quando si vuole digitalizzare è possibile, ci vorrà ancora del tempo, secondo me, per arrivare ad avere tutto in digitale, ma diciamo che questi spunti possono essere raccolti anche a livello nazionale e non solo nazionale. Grazie.
Thank you, Paola Stringa. In the meantime, I want to thank Rocco Ruffa and Luca Giordano, who just became a Eumans member, so you will be officially added to those with voting rights for the assembly, and thanks for your trust. Valentina Cosimati, Eumans member, 6 minutes, and then Simone Picenni. Let's try, before the end of the speech of Valentina, to register for speeches and interventions, so we have the full picture. So please let's try to close the subscription to speaking after Valentina. Thank you.
Ok, salute a tutte e a tutti. Grazie per questo spazio di accoglienza, diciamo così, all'interno dell'Assemblea della Riunione. Allora, io vorrei semplicemente fare una piccola considerazione per quanto concerne le elezioni italiane nello specifico. Vorrei dire che la legge elettorale è evidentemente una legge assurda, cioè una legge che non consente una rappresentanza democratica. Questo mi pare evidente. È molto importante questa battaglia che si sta combattendo, è molto importante la battaglia di Eumans per far riconoscere la possibilità di esprimere il proprio voto. E però io penso che bisogna lavorare anche sul concreto del territorio, cioè credo che sia importante anche fare formazione nei territori in cui si va a votare, per quanto concerne l'Italia nello specifico, e cercare di avere il maggior numero di persone formate, tra virgolette, so che sembra una cosa un po' assurda, ma formate per quanto concerne la presenza nei seggi. La persona che mi ha preceduta e che ringrazio moltissimo per l'intervento e per il contributo ha evidenziato delle criticità notevolissime all'interno del sistema elettorale nella concretezza dei seggi. Credo che sia davvero importante cercare di fare della formazione, visto che comunque ci sono persone, c'è un gruppo molto forte e anche molto attivo e con un gran numero di persone che può oggettivamente costituire anche dei piccoli gruppi locali che possono, credo, non lo so, è una mia idea, insomma, che possono essere dei baluardi della democrazia intanto nei seggi con il sistema attuale. Quindi è importante che vi siano anche persone, secondo me, che conoscano bene il sistema elettorale nei seggi, e questa cosa può essere fatta anche come forma di formazione, no? Da parte di una società, di un'associazione come quella di Eumans, perché ha le competenze per poterlo fare, ha i numeri, ha le persone e ha la volontà di far rispettare la democrazia. E quindi niente, questo è un piccolissimo intervento, perché ecco, mi è capitato di trovare nei seggi a volte dei presidenti, dei presidenti, dite come vi pare, insomma, che non hanno una formazione magari adeguata, e loro sono le persone più formate. Poi ci sono anche delle persone che si occupano di svolgere mansioni con minori responsabilità e che insomma non conoscono bene proprio il manuale. Non so se mi spiego, se c'è un manuale che viene dato. Ecco, ok. E quindi forse sarebbe il caso proprio di fare attività di formazione interna, anche perché affinché noi riusciamo ad interagire anche con questo tipo di cose. Grazie davvero.
Thank you, Valentina Cosimati. Now I have Bruno, Simone Picenni, Eumans member, 6 minutes. Then I have a Bruno that I'm not sure if it's Fabretto, if he is a member, 6 minutes. And then Rocco Ruffa and Francesca Capuozzo. So Simone Picenni. Bruno, dopo Simone.
So may I? Can you hear me?
Simone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, a bit of microphone noise.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for to all of you. Yes, I just wanted to. I decided to join the floor while Paola Stringa was talking, and basically she said something that I'm totally on board with. And she told us about her experience in Turin, and in particular about this fact that it is already possible in Turin to have something like a digital pass, an electoral pass, which is digital, so it is possible to certify the ability to vote of someone digitally via an app, and it's possible to do that in hospital, for example. So this is great, and so I think that we should really push in this direction, the direction of a digital electoral certificate, an electoral pass, and possibly a European digital certificate. So since we should work in this direction, I think we should really push at the European level. And also also the fact that she was working at an hospital made me think about the fact that we should really also push in the direction of implementing different forms of voting at Toma or at the hospital or in the nursing homes, caring homes. We have an aging population at the moment, and many people are we have an aging population in Italy, but several are in a similar situation. So I think that trying to push in this direction will be fundamental in the next years to guarantee the possibility of voting to many people. So yes, so basically I would just wanted to at this point I just wanted to thank Paola for what she said, for sharing this experience with us, and I think that what she told us about is just set us a path on which we should walk. So I won't take any more time here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simone. So next is Bruno Fabretto, 6 minutes, Eumans member.
Grazie. Dunque, si sente?
Sì, ma puoi fare meglio.
Non so come.
Urlando.
Tra l'altro prima mi si è scollegato tutto, quindi è un argomento anche quello della tecnologia che richiede investimenti a livello europeo molto più efficaci, anche perché gli strumenti sia hardware che software sono veramente lasciano desiderare. E prima qualcuno diceva che non dobbiamo essere solo orientati al software. Bene, diciamo che la tecnologia e il software sono uno strumento essenziale, come la scrittura, come la penna, come la carta oggi. Quindi è necessario che a livello europeo si sviluppino anche delle strutture informatiche per facilitare la diffusione della democrazia. Noi stiamo parlando su Zoom. Zoom è un prodotto non europeo, e quindi io sono molto indignato di non trovare prodotti europei per fare questa attività. Quindi auspico di trovare soluzioni europee la prossima volta che ci incontriamo. Sul piano organizzativo, la diffusione della tecnologia e del modo di votare, e parlo di esperienze come tutti noi che siamo andati a raccogliere le firme per strada. Bene, oltre a raccogliere le firme per strada, per referendum nazionali ho raccolto anche firme per strada per il mio comune, per fare delle referendum comunali, per fare delle proposte comunali. Quindi quello che auspico è che si diffonda anche a livello territoriale, quindi dal basso, non solo dall'alto, la pratica di raccogliere firme, di votare a livello comunale proprio, perché se riusciamo a inserire la diffusione a questo livello abbiamo raggiunto una capacità e una pressione sui governi anche, perché è importante che si sviluppi a livello popolare la tecnologia. Per quanto riguarda le elezioni italiane e l'assenteismo, diciamo che i fuori sede sono l'8,5%. È un dramma per la democrazia, è un dramma. Non è possibile pensare a una cosa del genere. Parliamo di studenti, io ho un fratello che sta assistendo alla sua compagna fuori sede e non ha votato. È una cosa inconcepibile, inconcepibile. La scuola, la pandemia che abbiamo appena sopportato per 2 anni, ha sviluppato una capacità a partire dai ragazzini. Io e i miei nipoti sono qua che ormai sono nel digitale, non sanno neanche cos'è il non digitale. Ecco, quindi diciamo che la diffusione della tecnologia va imposta. E io l'ho imposta, ad esempio, non sorridete, nell'assemblea condominiale. L'assemblea condominiale è un'assemblea molto particolare, che tutti credo sappiano cosa sia, e di difficile conduzione. Diciamo che con il digitale l'assemblea è diventata molto più ordinata e con la registrazione nessuno più si permette di dire cazzate, diciamo. Ecco. E quindi direi che bisogna imporre questa soluzione a tutti i livelli e non solo a livello alto di elezioni. L'altra cosa che vorrei dire è che di poter cambiare la sede non a Varsavia, la sede della prossima assemblea, ma io penso che sia anche un interesse europeo a Roma, perché Roma è una delle capitali dove si è sviluppata l'Unione Europea, dove è nata l'Unione Europea, e quindi in questo momento di crisi rappresentative, nel senso di un neofascismo che sta crescendo, e diciamolo, chiamiamolo col nome neofascismo a livello europeo, io credo che la prossima assemblea non vada fatta a Varsavia ma a Roma. E quindi con questo triste richiesta concludo. Grazie.
Thank you, Bruno. Francesca Capuozzo, Eumans member, 6 minutes.
Grazie, buonasera a tutti. Questa è anche la mia assemblea, la prima assemblea da membro, quindi sono felice di parteciparvi e chiedo scusa per il ritardo, quindi spero di non dire delle sciocchezze. Io stavo guardando il draft in particolare e avevo una domanda. Se rispetto alla parte in cui si dà mandato agli organi esecutivi di identificare opportunità per sperimentare i processi deliberativi usando il metodo delle assemblee dei cittadini, se sia stata una scelta specifica quella di identificare come tematiche principali diritti umani, salute e libertà, e se si possa cioè se è una scelta quella di escludere le tematiche legate alla crisi climatica.
I would say we forgot. I don't know if the other president can confirm. Technically, the proposal for the Citizen Assembly currently in Italy is on the environmental issue. We mentioned that because, as I mentioned in my introduction, we got some funding for 2 specific assemblies, one in Brussels and one in Italy, on health and civil rights. But of course, the environmental issue is part of the scope that we have already in part with the Cittadine per il Clima. So we can...
I agree. I can confirm.
So it's just sometimes you forget the basis where you start from. So it's definitely confirmed the climate emergency.
But just to underline that maybe if it's not a problem, we can add it, because if we repeat it once more is never enough.
No, it's a received amendment. Consider it received by the president. So yeah, thanks, Francesca.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, for the moment, no. It's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Francesca, key player for the presentation of the list Referendum and Democrazia over the summer, I want to mention. Rocco Ruffa, Eumans member, and it seems to me the last person that subscribed to speak. So please, if you want to do so, do it now. Otherwise, after Rocco, we go toward the end of the assembly. I see Klaus, and I know he wanted to speak. So Klaus, I add you by default to the speakers. But please write down now if you want to speak. Or no, first Rocco and then Klaus.
Ciao a tutti, mi sentite? Bene, no, volevo salutarvi, visto che questa è la mia prima assemblea come membro, e volevo cogliere quindi l'occasione per un saluto, ma anche è stato argomento di dibattito, ne hanno parlato molte persone nel corso degli ultimi interventi, ma ne aveva fatto cenno anche Lorenzo Mineo durante il suo intervento, che è quello della bassa, perché ora non ho premesso che vorrei parlare delle ultime consultazioni elettorali che ci sono state in Italia. C'è stata una bassa affluenza, soprattutto nelle regioni del meridione. Questa scarsa affluenza ha anche delle ragioni, tra le quali c'è anche una quantità, un numero importante di persone che, nonostante siano residenti in quelle regioni, vivono fuori sede, cioè vivono in altre regioni, magari anche distanti centinaia, se non migliaia di chilometri, come nel mio caso. Ora, c'è magari un contributo che viene dato per consentire a chi è fuori sede di tornare nella sua sede, ma è un contributo, che non è affatto sufficiente a coprire i costi. In ogni caso, forse dovremmo anche per certi versi spingere per consentire alle persone, ai fuorisede in particolare, di poter votare, magari utilizzando un metodo che in Italia già si utilizza, che è il metodo per posta. Quindi io non so se ne è mai parlato in questa assemblea, però il metodo votare per posta è già qualcosa di cui si servono gli italiani residenti all'estero, no? Votano attraverso la posta, quindi c'è un'anagrafe degli italiani residenti all'estero e queste persone possono esprimere il loro voto, quindi accedere a questo diritto fondamentale, quello di votare, attraverso la posta. Ora, sicuramente le esperienze che hanno raccontato, no? La nostra compagna che ha raccontato la sua esperienza da presidente nell'ospedale ha anche detto, ha fatto l'esempio di quella persona che però sperava di poter votare le persone, le liste che fanno parte del suo collegio in Trentino, in Valle d'Aosta, e si è vista invece una scheda diversa. Ora, questo penso che possa essere superato, perché tecnologicamente la posta è un qualcosa, diciamo, è già un diritto che in altri stati viene esercitato da tantissimo tempo e da alcuni decenni anche in Italia, ma solo per una piccola fetta di popolazione. Magari estendere questo meccanismo anche per gli altri. Ho finito. Un saluto.
Thank you very much, Rocco. So I see one last person who is Amedeo De Segni. Observer, 3 minutes. The floor is yours. Microfono. Non ti sentiamo, Amedeo, il microfono. No, Amedeo.
Ora si dovrebbe
Okay,
sentire?
ora sì.
Oh, perfetto. Allora, io sono Amedeo De Segni, sono un avvocato penalista. Ho lavorato molto insieme a voi, insieme a noi, al nostro gruppo, per fare la raccolta delle firme, l'autenticazione delle firme, ed anche quando è stato chiesto di candidarci nella speranza che potessero accettare le firme raccolte digitalmente. Insomma, mi sono dato da fare naturalmente inutilmente. Non è però inutile darsi da fare, anche se quel risultato che ci si prefigge per l'immediato non è raggiunto, perché la strada è fatta di tappe, così come è stato per l'eutanasia, che è quasi del tutto sdoganata, altrettanto lo sarà per tutte le altre battaglie. Però direi che dovremmo parlare in maniera più semplice per i non addetti ai lavori e darci invece un programma di azione concreto, sfruttando per ciascuno le proprie competenze al meglio. E mi spiego. Come dicevo, io sono un avvocato e come mia unica, diciamo, particolarità di avvocato ho potuto autentificare le firme raccolte ai tavolini, oltre a fare i tavolini. E questo va benissimo. Dopodiché ho dato la mia disponibilità per studiare insieme come fare i ricorsi, per vedere di stabilire e fare magari insieme la dichiarazione da depositare ai seggi, tirare fuori quali fosse, insomma, una serie di supporti tecnici che io come avvocato sono in grado di dare e che magari invece chi sa fare un'altra cosa potrebbe fare un'altra cosa. Ora io non sono mai stato né chiamato né ho avuto risposte alle mie proposte di essere utile con l'unica cosa che so fare bene, perché poi ho 72 anni, quindi sono, diciamo, vicino alla data di scadenza. E quello che volevo proporre al gruppo è di trovare il sistema di organizzarci, perché chi è bravo con la burocrazia sia addetto alla burocrazia, chi è bravo a scrivere scriva, chi è bravo come me a trovare o a usare le leggi faccia quello. Se tutti facciamo un po' di tutto e basta, temo che vadano sprecate molte abilità. Ora, siccome anche il tempo è molto prezioso, solo questo volevo dire e lancio di nuovo questo appello. Sono completamente disponibile, con oltre 45 anni di professione di avvocato, per essere utile come tale, non solo per firmare, naturalmente, dare contributi e fare quant'altro occorra, ma per aiutare i colleghi che stanno studiando i marchingegni, i ricorsi anche per Cassazione che dovremo fare alla Corte Europea, eccetera, perché non dare una mano anche io? Punto a capo, vi lascio proseguire la riunione.
Thank you, Amedeo De Segni. From a practical perspective, in the document that we are going to amend and vote, there is a reference also to the strengthening the organization of Eumans and also the investments to manage our community, our group, and the availabilities. So somehow what you are saying is part of our awareness of our limits and continue attempt to do better and use better the engaged citizens like yourself. So thanks again, and sorry if we didn't follow up before. Okay, Klaus Sambor, Eumans member, 6 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much that I have the opportunity to speak to you, and because it is today an important day for us in Austria, because last week we had in the Austrian Parliament the first reading of our referendum implementation, unconditional basic income. And today I was in the parliament invited to give a speech to the audience about our requirements. And so we have spoken, we call on legislator to introduce an unconditional basic income through federal constitutional regulations. This is intended to enable every person with their main residence in Austria to have a dignified existence and continuous participation in society. The amount, financing, and implementation are to be enshrined in law, following a process in which civil society is significantly involved. And that was the first involvement now. So we have given a justification to that, saying the unconditional basic income is a monthly state payment to every person with their main residence in Austria. It is considered as a social human right and is maintained with additional earnings. It is guaranteed to every person without an application and without an income or asset check. Recipients of high incomes and wealthy people will contribute to financing through tax measures. It does not imply a compulsory to pay in return, and it is a leap to face on the party of society. It makes it possible to better distribute paid and unpaid activities, but also recovery times among people. It complements today's welfare state instead to replacing it. It guarantees the basis of life individually, value assured, and unattachable. We expect that this might right to live strengthens the cohesion, reduce existence anxiety, promote climate protection, abolish poverty, make the transformation of the world of a more successful, reduce inequality in Austria, and reduce the speed of our life, increase our health and joy to vivere, tend to be more than today's welfare state without unconditional ever could. That is why we call on the legislator to start the implementation process immediately. Now, it was not immediately possible, but at least our motion in the Social Affairs Committee have to be possible. And so we have given, in the short my text, we therefore call on the legislator 3 items. The first one was to take a decision immediately with the aim to introducing an unconditional basic income, UBI, in Austria in the coming years. That's the first possibility. A second was the convene a citizens council, similar to the climate council, which we have in Austria, with scientific support in which an amount, financing, and implementation of the unconditional basic income will be discussed. And the third one is to stimulate an UBI in a large field trial, scientifically supported, e.g. by a university in Linz, and thus they gain the necessary insights or experience about a UBI in Austria. These would be scientifically sound statements as well as practical experiences about, and now we have given 5 points. The question of the extent to which unpaid activities that strengthen the capacity for democracy and improving political willingness to act, such as regular participation in elections, are increasing. Association activities, trade union and party work, participation in initiatives in the field of human rights, feminism, alternative economy, and so on. And the next one, the question of the extent to which the division between paid gainful employment, necessary care work, and leisure time for a much larger number of people will continue to balance, which will have a clearly positive effect on their mental and physical state of health. And the next 3 points are now the question to what extent the distribution of unpaid social work, child rearing, healthcare, care of elderly is distributed more equally between women and men in order to come closer to the goal of equal opportunities and the self-determination of women. And the question of how to the number of hours of work offered by employees changes, and how the responsibilities of significantly shaping one's own working conditions improve. The last one, the question at what extent investments are made in one's own further and or additional training and that of family members. That was the statements which I've given, but I have also mentioned that not only in Austria we have this project, but also, for example, we have mentioned that we have this project presentation and discussion on 12th of October, a plan to introduce a universal basic income in Catalonia for a strong and developed welfare state for Catalonia in the 21st century. That is a very big project with 5,000 people, which had already started. It goes 2026 and should give the advice that is really positive and possible to introduce an unconditional basic income. And a second project again started in Switzerland, and they have already tried to get it. Now it started again, and because of the statements of the politicians that financing is perhaps a problem and so on, they have tried to make it now clearly and saying the second of them, Federal Popular Initiative with the title Living in Dignity for affordable unconditional basic income. That means now they have taken the financing proposals which they want to have in this thing. So I think what I want to say is it is discussed after our ECI, which we have not get the million, but in national groups and in pilot projects, they go on with these discussions. And just this week, we have the Basic Income Earth Network in Australia, where we have the possibility with hybrid to also to participate there and have not to fly to Australia. And so I think everything is going in this direction to speak about UBI. And we was asking Eumans, and we want to join and cooperate with Eumans, especially to create the voice stronger by help of Eumans for this unconditional basic income. And if it is possible, perhaps to make a new Lisbon strategy, which is also on the table from could be done, and it would perhaps one of the proposals from Eumans I have read that they want to have an EU referendum possible. At the moment, we have only ECI agenda setting, but if we want to have an EU referendum, if this is possible, the first candidate would be UBI to introduce in the whole Europe. That is my short proposal, and I'm happy that we can speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Klaus Sambor. I don't know if maybe the first referendum on unconditional basic income, but the way toward a referendum is a good way to go. But thank you very much. And also I encourage you to consider the idea of the Eumans members group, the Eumans group on the unconditional basic income matter, which could be the best way also to build inside our movement, more awareness about the unconditional basic income, also because, as Marco Cappato was saying, it's not a defined goal yet. So I think it could be great for you as a member to start to create this group, and congrats for the work that you have done at the national level to follow up on the European Citizen Initiative. Okay, so Klaus Sambor was officially the last speaker. We are a bit ahead of time of the order of the works, but I would suggest, if no one is against, to move to the amendments and voting phase for the assembly. So please let me know if this doesn't work. But first question, is there any Eumans member that is planning to suggest amendments to the statute of Eumans? Which technically we are totally not ready to discuss, but it's in your rights. So that's the first question. Like, if anyone is really willing to use his rights, that's the moment with regards to the statute. Please let me know. Otherwise, we move to the final statement. Let me just...
mi sembra che siano non so se valgono i commenti alla...
No, aspetta, quello era sullo statuto, adesso stavo passando alla dichiarazione.
Ah, scusa.
Sì. Ok, so let's move to the statement. I see a couple of proposals in the comment section, which was the one used for this purpose. So we have Maddalena Ran that suggests to add to the amendments the creation of a European platform for the certification of the digital identity, which is a bit beyond the scope of what we are referring to in the document. I don't know if Maddalena is still connected, if you want to articulate what you mean. Is Maddalena still with us?
Sì, ci sono, mi sentite?
Vuoi provare a spiegare cosa proporresti di aggiungere?
Sì, pensavo che un po' il presupposto di tutte queste proposte, nel senso della digitalizzazione, il presupposto è comunque un riconoscimento dell'identità europeo con un unico strumento di certificazione. Mi spiego meglio. In Italia abbiamo lo SPID, abbiamo il CIE, lo SPID non vale a livello europeo, quindi la mia identità non può essere certificata in un altro paese tramite lo SPID. Il CIE in realtà è nato come strumento europeo, però non viene utilizzato sotto questa forma, e comunque se io mi trovo in un altro paese non posso utilizzare il CIE per certificare la mia identità. Penso che sia importante uno strumento di certificazione della propria identità e l'esistenza di una piattaforma di questo genere, che permetterebbe appunto per esempio la firma digitale per le proposte di iniziativa popolare o cose simili, insomma.
Grazie Maddalena. So you are a Eumans activist but not member, so you can't vote. But I want to try to see if there is a way to, I mean, the main reference of the final statement is the eIDAS regulation, which is the European identity regulation, that it's what covers also our appeal to the court on this matter with regard to the signatures. So I think fighting for the implementation of the eIDAS regulation, we cover what you are suggesting. That's my interpretation. I don't know if those that are more expert than me, Roberto,
Virginia, no, but maybe in general terms, the idea of European digital identity
that is what is already mentioned in the statement. It could imply, in a way, it could cover also a common certification. I think that the more specific point that was raised would need maybe to be studied a little bit to understand at what level is needed. I know, for example, somebody wrote me about the fact that the Italian digital certification SPID is needed for participating to some selection for jobs at the university, but non-Italian people cannot have access to this kind of identity. So the problem is a real one. Instead of simply putting like that into the final motion, I would ask Maddalena to help us in identifying better which kind of rules should be modified, just in order not to mention something that then we don't know what it could imply. But I think it's a good suggestion. I'm neutral about the fact of adding to the resolution or not. I think it's already included in the idea of a European digital identity, but we could work on that.
Thank you, Marco. I agree with Marco, but in the meantime, Paola Stringa, who also made a comment, and I think the comment to the document is basically would have the same answer, like let's have a broad scope on the European digital identity, and then we, as part of our efforts, will keep studying, see the application. Of course, this also ties to the European Living Will proposal and other things. So somehow with this fluid term, we cover the goal.
Scusa,
and the
posso dirti
aspetta un secondo, Maria, aspetta un secondo. Paola,
posso dirti una cosa su, siccome ha fatto riferimento all'università e agli stranieri che non possono accedere all'università, mi sono appena iscritta a un concorso pubblico a cui possono accedere anche cittadini della comunità europea, però per iscriversi a questo concorso era necessario lo SPID, cioè proprio per accedere al portale dell'amministrazione pubblica era necessario lo SPID, quindi se effettivamente lo SPID ce l'ha solo l'italiano, per forza di cose tu devi essere un cittadino italiano. Lo dico solo visto che ha fatto il riferimento all'università, eccetera. Era solo un inciso, se vi può essere utile per la riflessione.
Cioè su questo tema io lavoro all'estero.
Andrea, scusa, però ci sono tipo delle magistrate, una procedura. Ti aggiungo a parlare, però prima c'è Luca Dal Pubel. Okay. And sorry for switching to Italian, but no. Vai, Luca.
Thank you. Thank you, Virginia. Just looking at the declaration of the statement, on the very first that says identified opportunities, I think we should be more specific with the objectives, because we say with the objectives of fundamental rights. So what we mean by that, like with the objectives of promoting and protecting fundamental rights, promoting action to climate, the right to health, and the freedom of expression of. So we have to be a little more specific. Otherwise, reading it like that in English is too, I think it's too generic, and we don't really say what we're going to do with this fundamental rights, or with climate, or health and freedom. So I propose that we discuss if, for example, we would like to add with the objective of promoting and protecting or fundamental rights, or in promoting climate action, the right to health and freedom, also freedom to, it's a freedom to freedom to be informed, freedom to, we have to be a little more specific, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Luca. Andrea Poggio.
Okay, thanks. No, coming back to the point that was expressed before, I fully agree that a real unique system all around Europe would be great. The only point, personal opinion at the moment, is not a matter of discrimination or whatever, because whoever can ask for a digital identity in another country. For instance, you have a Polish trusted profile. I'm not so happy of having the speed in Italy, the trusted profile in Poland, another thing in Germany, and so on. So I agree, would good to have a unique one. On the other side, we cannot say that one cannot have access to this or that in another country, because it's just a cumbersome procedure, but it's possible to obtain a digital identity in another European state.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Francesca.
I just want to add something about what Luca Dal Pubel told right now. I think that the 4 objectives now are just the theme. So it's not the goal of promoting and climate action. The climate and the freedoms have to be the theme, the main theme, the main objective of the civic assemblies. So it's something different, and also the problem of the generic theme is a false problem, because, for example, our constitution is as all the other European constitution contain a lot of freedoms. So it would be also too specific to write down one freedom and not the other, since our constitution contain generic freedoms. So I think it is better to leave the objective like that are generic and that have to be focused by the assemblies, the civic assemblies.
Thank you, Francesca. I'll try to use what you said to react to what Luca said. Probably the mistake is to use the word with the objectives of, but if we say in the areas of, and we list the topics, it's generic enough to give the goals, and then we have the Statute of Humans that somehow connects it to the rule of law and fundamental rights, etc. And in this way, it's in the areas of, and we don't need to decline the objectives. That will be.
Yeah, thank you, Francesca. Well, I understand that, and I totally agree with that. I mean, we can really, include every single right or every single freedom. It was just more a matter of language. So I would propose, for example, say, starting with the objectives of discussing or starting with a discussion of the objectives related to fundamental rights, climate, health, and freedom. So just to work a little bit around the language there. So meaning that all this, for example, this assemblies will be the idea of the assembly would be to discuss issues related to fundamental rights, climate change, health, and freedom. Okay. So I would propose just changing it into starting with the discussion of the objectives related to fundamental rights, climate, health, and freedom.
Okay, I think this formulation is a bit what is a good compromise. So we know the topics, but we don't direct the topics with our own motion, because that's why we need the assembly. Okay, I would say we consider this reformulation and we'll include it. With regards to the identity, citizenship, etc., I go back to the point of Marco Cappato. I would suggest we keep the digital identity, the European digital identity, as the framework we move in, considering all these layers. And as we have seen, they are complicated, a citizen and not citizens, which system. So it's part of the overall goal of the European digital identity, which of course needs to be harmonized. So I suggest we are, the proposal is to keep the statement as such because it covers the amendments that were suggested. Procedurally wise, we consider this recommendation from Luca received and will be rephrased in the statement. And if those that propose the amendment are satisfied with the fact that we refer to the European identity as the area, we don't change the statement, but I need those who proposed it to agree with this, basically, before voting on the statement. Maddalena, Paola, Andrea, is it okay if we leave the reference to the European digital identity and of course everything that falls from that without getting into the specificity? Ok, cool.
Per me va bene.
Maddalena va bene, Paola thumbs up, Andrea e Monia were integrating, so...
Per me sì.
Okay.
Sì, d'accordo.
Cool, so let's proceed for the first time with a voting system that is not me and Lorenzo freaking out and changing the thing. So I'm gonna show the poll now here. Okay, so now if you are logged into the platform, you should see the poll, your vote on the final statement. And only the Eumans members should be allowed to vote. If you are a Eumans member and you cannot vote, it might be because you registered with Eumans with a different email address than the one that you have received. So let me know in case you are a Eumans member and you cannot vote on the poll. Lorenzo, la tua è Science Po, vedo la tua faccia. Sei registrato con Science Po. Te la posso cambiare però.
Yes, just noticed that.
Okay, I'm gonna email. Proceed with the vote. Those of you who can vote, please go on and vote. And in the meantime, I'll fix Lorenzo's status in the platform.
Thank you, Virginia.
And Rocco, scusa, I see your comment, but was when we started the voting. But so just for everyone, Rocco Ruffa is suggesting to add the vote by post for not residents. I would say.
Well, it's too late. We are already voting.
Exactly. But as a reassurance for Rocco, the event that we refer in the motion in Brussels on democracy rights can cover everything basically. So we can further the discussion in that context. One second that I need to change Lorenzo access. Un secondo, Lorenzo. Okay, you should be able to vote now. And in case, refresh the page if you can't.
Did it.
Cool. Let's keep this phase a bit interactive speaking. Is there anyone that is a Eumans member that is connected to the assembly now on Zoom and cannot vote on the platform?
Well, I voted, but it's still it didn't tell me that my vote went through.
I anonymized the procedure, so I cannot tell you if you vote.
No, okay. Maybe with the cell phone there could be some problem. I don't know.
Okay, because I cannot see. Let me see.
Anyway, it's not a problematic vote, so that
no, exactly.
not just to. I would do a screenshot just for
future reference. Okay.
I voted in favor, and then I submitted the answer, but then as the circle is
can I ask you which email you use to log? Your Gmail or your Coscioni?
My Coscioni, I think.
1 second that I check. This might be the reason. Okay, yes, Marco, 1 second. I need to allow that email to be.
Okay.
1 second. Okay, now Marco, you should be able to vote with the email that you log in.
Thank you.
Okay, I see Sonia Bellini. Sonia? Sonia, se vuoi parlare capiamo che problema hai. Riesci a usare il microfono?
Sì, sì, riesco a usare il microfono, non è comparso niente. Prendete il mio voto orale. Sì, ho ricaricato la pagina, ma non è sempre la stessa cosa.
Andrea Poggio, scusa, è la mano di prima o è la stessa mano? E
No,
Sonia, adesso dovresti riuscire tu.
No, io sono in colpevole ritardo e non trovo il link alla piattaforma. Perdonatemi, ma sei proprio indietro.
Aspetta, te lo rimetto qua nella chat.
Grazie.
Okay.
È una mozione cambiare quest'icona della mano tesa. È bellissimo, visto il periodo.
Allora, Sonia now should be able to vote and Andrea should have access to the platform. Is there anyone else that is having troubles? Ah, Mariel. Qual è il tuo problema, Mariel? Allora, to clarify, you need to access the link eumans.in.housepace.com. Once you have access, you go in the section called Draft Final Statement. And if you scroll down in the page, you should see the poll, which now I'm bringing up so it's more visible. Sonia non ce l'ha fatta, capiremo perché. I'm sorry, it was our first try with this alternative system to counting hands, so troubles, but lessons to be told. Mariel, facci sapere se ce l'hai fatta. Io
dovrei aver fatto, Andrea.
Ok. Mariel, I'm gonna share the screen, so maybe we can walk you. So once you access the platform, you are in the welcome page. And then if you go draft final statement, you have the poll to vote. Super visible. Does it help? Mariel, dacci un segno.
Virginia, maybe we should
Yeah, no,
close
just
the
want
vote.
to try to give a chance. Fatto. Ok, Sonia made it. Mariel, I think you have everything that you need. So we close the vote in 30 seconds. Unless you tell us something. Okay, I'm off, sorry. Okay, Mariel, I'm sorry, we'll verify what happened. But in any case, your vote wouldn't have had an impact on the results. So the final statement is voted with 17 votes in favor and 1 abstention. And we will apply the change agreed with Luca Dal Pubel in the version that will be published online. So this phase is closed. I thank everyone for joining. I don't know if Marco has some final remarks.
No, thank you.
Okay, so thanks everyone for attending this assembly. Next appointment, 13th of October in Modena for those of you who can join, and in December in Brussels. The date should be the 6th of December, but you will receive more updates. And thank you everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Saluto Amina. Un caro
Ciao.
saluto. Ciao.
Grazie, grazie a tutte quante e tutti quanti.
Virginia, quindi facciamo così?
Sì.
Ok, perfetto.
Volevo capire come chiudere il sistema, ma... Ok, grazie a tutti. Ciao.
Ciao.